Hi, welcome to a new segment of videos where we'll be taking a look at some of our long-term motorcycles and what it's been like living with them. Today the time has come to part with one of our favorite bikes, the Interceptor 650. So before we say our goodbyes and send her back to Royal Enfield, we decided to wrap things up with a short video discussing some good bits, some not so good, and I'll even run you through the performance updates we've added to this bike. So let's get started. Our absolute favorite part of the Interceptor has to be the engine. This 648cc parallel twin is an extremely versatile unit. It's comfortable and easy going at slow speeds, but when you twist the throttle, it accelerates with no hesitation. We've ridden it hard for most of its life, and so far, it's been nearly fault-free. No oil leaks, no unusual sounds from the valve train, and no drop in performance. We're also pleased by the fact that despite being a larger engine, it doesn't radiate uncomfortable levels of heat. Your legs do sit close to the engine, so you run the risk of coming into contact with hot parts. But in the right riding gear, it's not something that will bother you. The suspension on the Interceptor is a basic twin shock absorber unit, and it does a good job of balancing comfort and sportiness on a bike like this. The monsoons in Mumbai really take a toll on the roads here, but the Interceptor soaks up broken patches and potholes rather well. The rear suspension also offers 5 steps of preload, so you do have the option to adjust it based on your requirements. Spend some time with the Interceptor and you'll find that the position of the foot pegs is a bit awkward. It's not something that will bother you when you're riding, but come to a halt or when you're crawling through traffic and they will get in the way. Things aren't much better at the rear as well, because the way the foot pegs are positioned, taller people sitting behind you will find it a bit cramped. Alright, so most areas on the bike are quite nice. We found no issues with the speedometer, frame or electronics, but over the 4-month-long monsoon, there were some parts that were affected by the weather. In terms of rust, we noticed it on the clamps on the fork, but that's a part that Royal Enfield will be able to replace easily. Unfortunately, the monsoon has oxidized quite a bit of the chrome on the engine cases. Royal Enfield had most of these parts buffed, but the cases or engine guards weren't removed for the process, so some hard to reach areas remain undone. Now let's take a look at some of the performance updates on our Interceptor and the cost of living with the bike. Our bike sports a Growler exhaust from Indy Motard, a BMC air filter, and the Powertronic ECU and quick shifter from Race Dynamics. While all of them bring their own advantages, the quick shifter has to be our favorite. Under regular riding speeds, it makes upshifting easier, and while riding at pace, it makes them a whole lot of fun. The Powertronic worked flawlessly, and we faced no major issues with fueling. The quick shifter, however, did get clunky and sometimes unresponsive, but we found that this was because water had seeped into the sensor when the bike was pressure washed. The Race Dynamics is quite expensive, but it does give you the freedom to extract more from the engine. What many people won't mind spending the money on is the exhaust. It sounds pretty awesome, but it's quite loud, and this is a bit of kit that you will install at your own risk, keeping in mind that this will also avoid your warranty. Now on to the cost of living with the Interceptor. The most frequent expense will be on fuel, but the Interceptor fares reasonably well in this regard. With a Powertronic plugged in, the Interceptor was nearly as efficient as it was in stock mode, but some aggressive riding will result in slightly lower figures. A fair price to pay for the added fun that you'll be having. In terms of maintenance, the first few thousand kilometers with the bike were a breeze. Our last service just after 10,000 kilometers though did include the change of brake pads, the buffing and an oil change, adding up to a little over Rs 9,000. Some of the costs are a little high, like the brake pads, but overall it's not at shocking levels. That said, our bike's been put through a lot more and ridden a lot harder than one would usually ride his own motorcycle. Well, that's the end of this video, and sadly, our time with this lovely bike. We'll be doing more of these long-term videos, so drop a comment on what you'd like addressed and stay tuned for the next one.